Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Ending Physician Overwhelm. As always, I am thrilled to be with you and have you join me today. We are going to be talking today about something I've talked about on the show before, but it's been quite a while, which is called human giver syndrome. And this is a concept that comes out of a wonderful book, which is called Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And I was recently listening to a podcast episode where Emily was talking about human giver syndrome, and it just lightning bolt. I need to talk about this again because it has been quite a while. For those of you who will be joining me in Unbound, Women Physicians Reclaiming Their Lives, which starts December 1st, coming up very shortly, we will be diving into this topic as well in a deeper dive. But let's go ahead and get started in talking about what this is and how it shows up. So I want you to imagine that you are sitting in a meeting or a morning huddle and some new policy or system is being shared. You know exactly how things have been going for you. You know exactly what colleagues and staff have been struggling with. And so you raise your hand and you point out concerns that you have. I'm not sure this is going to work because I've been noticing whatever it is. And the response you get is, you really should stop being so negative. Ouch. Now, that is a very whitewashed version of stories that have happened to me. But I think we've all encountered times when in our burnout, we have been perceived as negative. We have been scapegoated. We have been blamed for being not a team player. This shows up in a lot of women physicians, and it's a part of the burnout, but it's also related to this thing called human giver syndrome, which we're going to talk about. So they initially present this idea of human giver syndrome after having referenced a feminist philosopher who talked about human givers and human beings. And human givers give. They are conditioned to give. They are inspired to give. They feel that their role is to give and give and give. Human beings they get to be, they get to exist. And so often when they are used to getting from the human givers, and the human giver says no or is unable to meet their request, their expectations, their desires, the human being protests because suddenly their needs are not being met. They push back on the human giver. And the human giver has it reinforced that if they aren't meeting the needs of the human being, they've done something wrong. This idea is so rife and rampant, I feel, in the lives of women physicians. So many of us who are here and we struggle. And of course, it's not limited to women. It's not limited to physicians, but there are some majority party lines through which this falls. And that's the lens we're looking at it through here, because again, it is such a common phenomenon. It's really something that we need to unpack and understand if we're going to make progress. So many of the physician clients that I work with come to me seeking help with charting, with efficiency. They want to get out of burnout, and they perceive that these administrative tasks that we all might struggle with are the way for them to feel better. But underpinning all of this is this belief that our role is to serve. And because this has been reinforced in so many ways over and over again, we feel pretty stuck. We will not complete our notes faster if we believe that our role is to serve, to not inconvenience or keep someone else waiting, right? That we are responsible for producing someone else's feelings. So let's go through some examples of how this shows up in our day to day and what do we need to know about it. So, one way that this can present is a silencing of your voice. Think back to that initial story, right? Getting the feedback that you're being too negative, that you're not a team player, that everyone else seems to be just fine with this. What happens to you when you hear that feedback? So we have an initial response in our bodies, right? Like it might feel unsafe and unsettled. You might feel suddenly super anxious. You might feel, sensations in your stomach or tightness in your jaw, your shoulders, right? We we feel these sensations in our body because someone telling us that us not being on board, us not being a team player, us being so negative feels dangerous. It feels like a threat to our social existence, right? If I am displeasing someone else and I am conditioned as a human giver, then I am in threat of being kicked out of the group. These sensations in our bodies are very real. And it comes from a belief that if I'm not meeting other people's needs, if I am voicing my own concerns or my own needs, maybe I've asked for time off or reduced schedule and they say, no, we can't accommodate that. I will internalize that my needs are a burden, that what I feel like I should be able to have is actually not okay. And if I walk around with that stance, right, believing that my needs are not worthy of being met, what does that do for my self worth? What does that do for my confidence? What does that do for my ability to take care of myself and get my actual needs met? My actual basic human needs, right, for food and water and using the bathroom when I need to, and getting sleep, getting exercise, getting connection with other people, right? The ripple effect of this is huge. How many times have you just accepted that your role was to keep the peace, right? That you need to be a team player, and asking for something or letting your voice be heard is not meeting the mark. It's not being a team player. Where does that show up for you? Let's talk about another facet where this pops up, which is the invisible labor of emotional support. Tell me, who do people turn to when they are having a problem? Maybe it's an actual problem, like an actual logistical problem that you need to solve. That's one element. But women, by and large, bear the emotional toil of other people's distress. People will come and offload their emotions and feelings and difficulties on you because they trust that you are a compassionate, empathic person, right? If you have listened to the episode that I did on empaths in medicine, you feel this one really, really strongly, right? Where people will stop by your desk to offload on you, right? To look for help, to look for support. And nurses or other staff members will do the same, right? They come down. You might have been through your own super busy day in the clinic or the hospital, and somebody comes by and they just want to offload on you because they know you're a supportive listener. Has that happened to you? And what happened to you? Right? That is someone inadvertently asking you to donate your time, emotional energy, and bandwidth to their concern. And it's not intrinsically evil or wrong. But how often have you spoken up and said, actually, I don't have capacity to hear you right now. I care about you. You're important to me, but I actually don't have the time or the energy to be able to really hear you. Now, we might choose to connect back with them. We might give them opportunities to, be heard, right? And to share their stories. We might be able to do that, but we're not going to do it right here and now. Although, how many of us have been in that position? Same thing. You receive a portal message or, a call. Someone is asking you to give them a quick call back. Someone is asking, a million questions about a topic on the portal because they want your answer right now. They want your support right now. Human givers get stuck in giving, right? We feel if somebody has made a request, if they've asked questions to us, if they, have called us and they say they just want a quick call back, that means we must do it in order to fulfill that obligation. That keeps us working really long hours, staying too late, not getting the stuff done that we need to get done, not getting home to our families, not having time for exercise, right? There is a very real chain of things that gets clogged up when we are the dumping ground for other people. Again, there's nothing wrong with people wanting to come to you for empathy and compassion and just to have human connection and dialogue. But if you've just spent all day doing it, or you don't have time right now, or you don't have the emotional energy, how often have you been stuck because you didn't feel like you could speak up and move away from that situation? I know that people get trapped in this. And I just want you to see that as part of this human giver syndrome. It's part of a myth that we need to unpack a little bit in order to be able to take care of ourselves. All right, let's think about the next one. When you went into medicine, you saw examples of the selfless physician, the person who always said yes, the person who always stayed late, the person who gave and gave and gave and always seemed to be happy doing it, and may have overtly or covertly taught you that that is the way that we have to show up. We see this dynamic also generationally in conversations about medicine and hours and whether or not people are dedicated enough in being willing to spend crazy hours at work and just pitch in and just help out. And we should be happy doing it, right? Is the message that we should receive. But meanwhile, you might be exhausted. You might be overwhelmed. Your brain may not have capacity to do anything because you didn't take care of yourself all day. And now you're being asked to do more and to do more with a smile on your face. Again, how often has this come up with you? And what does it do for yourself on the other side of that as well? Let's say you have gotten a weekend off, right? Somebody asks you to cover an extra shift. You say no. But then what happens? You perseverate on, was that mean? Was that wrong? Am I a terrible person for saying no when you are so sleep deprived and so brain dead that you would not have been effective in that place anyway? It probably wouldn't have been safe for you to do that. This is a really common phenomenon, and we have to see how this culture of the patient always comes first and we all just need to pitch in regardless of how many people have left or how little staffing we have. This idea that it's us or nothing is harming us. And this one is a real challenge, right? Because we know that there are dwindling numbers of people in positions, right? There are departments that are really understaffed in all of the ways that you can imagine. You know that there are sick patients who need you. And yet, how often are you being asked to give and give and give and serve? And it's being implied to you that you are a terrible person for not being happy and just lovingly saying yes all of the time. It's true that we need to be able to sprint. We need to be able to sprint medically, meaning that there are going to be times where there are particular circumstances where we really have to push to make sure that this particular thing happens. But we cannot sprint a marathon, and our careers are a marathon. If you think about residency as a sprint, right, you had a fixed number of years where you had very little say and very little control over your schedule. Your career is a marathon. If you constantly say yes, if you're constantly hustling and picking up extra work and there's no room in your life, you are absolutely a victim of human giver syndrome in a broken healthcare system. It is a huge problem, and you did not create the problem, but you are the only one who can help pull yourself out of it by making sure that you stick to healthy boundaries, even when you know the need is huge, and changing the way that you think about it so that during your off hours, you are actually able to rest. You are actually able to disengage, that you're not constantly checking the L&D board to see how bad it is for the person who did suck it up and take the shift, right? That you're not constantly sort of scanning and trying to convince yourself that what you did was okay, that you're not sitting and staying in that anxiety because you feel so conditioned to serve others and never take care of yourself. You can see how toxic this human giver syndrome is. And we are socialized to accept human giver syndrome when we enter medical school. We are socialized to perpetuate it during residency and fellowship. We are encouraged and gaslit into continuing it as attendings because that is profitable for the healthcare system that we work in. It's not sustainable, though. It's not healthy. And it takes some changing to the way that you think in order to be able to get out of it. You can see this is such an insidious problem because it's so baked in throughout all the work that we do and all the training. And it takes an active undoing to unlearn it. But you can unlearn, you can cure, you can heal human giver syndrome. It just takes intention and thought and trial and error and a willingness to be uncomfortable. It's good work to do. And I'm not going to say it's easy work to do, but it is the path to gaining the freedom, the bandwidth, right? The better emotional state and mental health that you deserve, probably the better physical health, the better connections, the better relationships that you desire. And it doesn't have to come at the cost of being an excellent physician. You can be an excellent physician who has shed the weight of human giver syndrome and find your place. You can do this work. And I know that's true. I have done it. I've seen others do it. I've helped others do it. But we have to be very intentional and clear on what the problem is. The problem is not the charts. The problem is deeper than that. So I want you to imagine what would happen if you let go of human giver syndrome. If you stopped apologizing for having needs or for asking that they be met. What if you could speak up and your truth wasn't seen as negative or not being a team player? It was seen as part of the conversation. What if you felt very settled and confident that the care that you provide is good care, that you can't be all things to all people, and you're not the right flavor for every human who walks into your door? You're not. I'm not. None of us is. But you can do an excellent job for the people whose flavor you are. And you can do an excellent job in taking care of people and taking care of yourself and letting go of the guilt, letting go of the difficulty that you currently feel in setting boundaries. When we get out of the weight of human giver syndrome, so much opens up. In my own life, what I see for myself is constantly looking around thinking, how can I make this easier? How can I make this easier? I do that at work. I do that at home. it's so freeing. And with that comes permission to make things easier, permission to hire people to help me, permission to engage with tools, permission to let stupid stuff go that's not really important, right? Permission to delegate. All of those things come with shedding human giver syndrome, and it's such good work. But we often need support and intention and guidance to do it. If that hits home for you and you're a woman physician, I want you to join me in Unbound, Women Physicians Reclaiming Their Lives. This group program starts December 1st, 2024. And it is the place where you can come and do this work in community with other women physicians who know your struggles. Through group coaching, through education, through reflection and self-work, and holding each other accountable in a supportive, amazing community of super smart, super amazing physicians, we will get stuff done. We will collectively let go of human giver syndrome and make space for ourselves in our own lives. You don't have to do this alone, but you do have to take the step of actually signing up. So I want you to go to the show notes below, and I want you to click on the link for Unbound. Reach out to me with questions. You can reach me at megan@healthierforgood.com. I answer those questions directly myself. I'm happy to hear from you. My friends, this is the work that we need to do, and your chance to shed human giver syndrome starts now. But you need to make a decision, and I hope that you'll make the decision to join us. Until next week, take care. My thoughts are with you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.